and came out. Pakistan established the Allama Iqbal Open University on the pattern of the British University, as well British Open University, as well as a virtual university in Islamabad. Today, what is happening is the possibility that all knowledge, instead of on books, which have to be printed and sent out and become static at the time of printing, this knowledge in the cloud is not static, is dynamic, and we need to give access to our students to this knowledge. That is the hybrid system, of course, and that is where the faster we move, the easier it will become for people in Pakistan. The issue of people in Pakistan and people the rest of the world over is very different. We have to make education less expensive. We have to make education less elitist, because higher education has suffered elitism throughout the world. We have to make it less elitist. And the universities in Pakistan which are providing virtual education or open learning are much cheaper. For example, if you were to look in rupees, a private sector university for a bachelor's program can cost about 15 or 16 lakhs, and a public sector university may cost 6 or 8 lakhs, and a virtual learning university can cost about 1/4 of that cost. So that is something which Pakistan needs desperately to get into. The problems which we may face are the facts of, for example, the bandwidth which was mentioned, and I must congratulate also the Higher Education Council in the leadership of Mr. Tariq Banoori, and of course the guidance provided by Mr. Shafqat Mahmood, that we are quickly transitioning into an era where brick and mortar universities along with hybrid education or hybrid learning is going to change a lot. What happens in Pakistan, for example, on another context? We talked about women empowerment and women education. We also talk about the fact that a lot of people, after doing their intermediate or a 12-year education course, cannot afford to have education and they go into employment. This hybrid education possibility opens up the possibilities of the person doing a day job or a job, but at the same time to be able to learn. Now the problems in this hybrid learning and the problems after COVID, this was the era of pre-COVID is very different, but we, Pakistan, headed that direction, and I was talking about it since a long time. But the issue here then becomes that the good thing about it, the situation is that the Higher Education Commission has come up with the policy on distance learning, and I think that policy is going to be very important. The access of the student with increasing bandwidth, with the fact that they should have devices, the fact that 4G is going to yield to 5G, but in Pakistan even 4G is not being fully utilized. But that is something which I have heard about all through the last about 12 months or 9 or 10 months. Even when I went to Gilgit-Baltistan and we went into the hybrid education, the universities and the students were having a problem with bandwidth, and therefore other measures needed to be taken. So what hybrid learning actually does is links the student to the knowledge base, but then, like Mr. Banoori also mentioned, that because it's a new system, the teachers needed to be educated to be able to handle this kind of system. So the teachers were also learning, but again, as mentioned, during the second wave, we are smarter, we are better in handling that, and the teachers are educated in trying to handle this. Now, once we guide the students and we open the doors of knowledge, at the same time, the teacher should be available at different times to be able to address where the student is not able to overcome difficulty which he faces. But the most difficult part is the ability to examine students through a system which is a combination of a physical attendance and a virtual presence. So what can happen, what is happening, COVID would leave a footprint on the education system entirely. And that footprint would be that even in higher education physical learning centers, there will be a quantum of learning abilities and faculties and the highways which have been created because of COVID to make it easier for knowledge to be exchanged and knowledge to be given in a very professional manner, whereby we create people and we create a situation throughout the world where people can learn easily. Now, the problem in examination, of course, examination has always been necessary, because if a third party wants to employ somebody, wants to use the skills of somebody who's gone through a system, there must be a way of certification of what has been done, what are his capabilities. So therefore that certification is definitely important even in these systems, and we will be learning on how to achieve those kind of certifications. Ladies and gentlemen, I believe that the cooperation which we have received from the United Kingdom through the British Council is excellent. I believe that because of the diaspora, that Pakistani diaspora in England, and when I was working with my party and every time I went abroad, people asked me what you could do, and this is, I'm talking about maybe 10, 12 years ago also, and I would tell them the world is getting smaller. This diaspora has cooperated thoroughly with Pakistan. Their hearts are in Pakistan. They want to do some contribution. The professionals have increased their communication with professional universities, whether it is medicine, engineering or technology, in different ways, and trying to guide our universities to come forward and sharing their skills and knowledge with our universities. I think this is very important, and these are the links which we need to establish. I must appreciate the commitment of the British Council as far as education in Pakistan is concerned. I must appreciate their financial commitment, and I must appreciate the good cooperation happening between the Higher Education Commission and the Ministry of Education, and that the links and the encouragement which we can give the educated diaspora regarding this. Lord Baron Ahmed spoke just a few minutes ago. I think that cooperation has to be increased, so that we should make the flow of knowledge less copyrighted, much more free than ever before. If we want the world to make progress, it is important that knowledge should be less expensive, because there is misery, there is poverty throughout the world, and poverty can be eliminated by two major factors. One being ensuring the fact that our populations are educated and ensuring their health. So therefore, any premium on knowledge is something which Pakistan cannot afford. Pakistan is looking for ways and means to make a non-elitist. We have, during the COVID, we were one society as compared to other areas, where we ensured the fact that our workers and our employees do not totally go out of a job, so we didn't go towards total lockdown. So Pakistan is gradually progressing and trying its best to establish a non-elitist society, a society in which we can empower our women, and the best way of the best contribution Pakistan can make through this kind of hybrid learning is to our women who can get educated, stay during times when they have to raise their family. Sometimes what happens, once they're out of the system, they stay out. But this interaction can ensure that they can continue their education during that time. If they are pregnant, they can continue their education after childbirth, etc. So this empowerment of women is going to be the mainstay of all our programs also. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to you, and I must appreciate the tremendously good work which is being done by the Ministry of Education and the British Council. Thank you.
So